All right. Calling calls number 25DCV0017, Department of Family and Protective Services versus Nikki Heller and Sean Heller for a motion to participate um, in court-ordered services. Ms. Dick, is the department ready?
The department's ready, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Do you know whether this is agreed or contested?
Contested.
Okay, very good. Ms. Prophet, are you ready? And
I
you
am ready, Your
represent,
Honor.
okay, very good. You represent the respondent, Nikki Heller, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Pouncil, you represent Sean Heller. Are you ready?
Ready, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. And Ms. Pardue Wheeler, good afternoon. Are you ready? All right. I'll take that as a yes. So, okay, opening statements, anything before the court receives opening statements?
Your Honor, I would like to invoke the rule.
All right, so the rule's been invoked, and what that means is two very simple but extremely important things. One is that witnesses are not permitted to hear other witnesses testify. So I will excuse those who are not parties or a spouse of a party. In the department's case, their representative. So we'll place you outside of the virtual courtroom, as it were. And so, Ms. Dick, who is the department's representative? And let me know who your first witness is. I'll leave them in the courtroom.
I believe Ms. Garzoria is our department representative, and Ms. Gray will be my first witness.
Okay, so we will leave them in the courtroom. If you will raise your right hand to be sworn, we'll get you sworn and then unmuted. Very good. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Dick. You may proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Gray, please state your name for the record.
Ashley Gray.
And what are the allegations in this case?
Neglectful supervision.
Okay. And how old are the children?
14 and 11.
And what are your specific concerns for the children?
I'm concerned about the neglectful supervision allegations and concerns of drug involvement.
And when did you first make contact with the family?
I made contact with them at Ms. Prophet's office on December 10th of 2024. However, I did attempt to make contact with them at their home twice, once on December 2nd, 2024, and the second time on December 3rd, 2024.
All right. And when you went to their home, did anyone appear to be there?
The first time I did hear Mr. Heller and Ava inside the home, and the second time I did not hear anything, and neither time did I make contact with them.
All right. When you met with the children at Miss Prophet's house, it's apartment, office, excuse me, I apologize. What were you hoping to learn from the kids?
Just to assess their safety with their parents, and see if they had ever seen drugs and narcotics in their home.
All right. And did the children disclose anything at that meeting?
They did not.
Right. And were the parents present during your interview of the children?
No, they were not.
Was Miss Prophet there?
Yes.
Okay. And what other, when you went, prior to this time with the children, did you have any opportunity to speak with the parents?
There was one time I was able to locate Miss Nikki Heller's phone number, and so I contacted her and explained our involvement in the CPS case, and at that time she had informed me that she had retained Miss Prophet as her attorney. But other than that one conversation, no, that was all the contact I had with the family.
Okay.
Before I made contact with them at Miss Prophet's office.
So since that initial contact, what has your investigation revealed?
Well, I have obtained the police reports, and I have concerns based off of the final police reports. I have not been able to speak to the family further since our last meeting. And the family, the parents, Mr. and Mrs. Heller, they did deny any drug involvement to me. However, the police report states different.
Objection, Your Honor, as to what any police report says.
Sustained.
Hearsay.
I couldn't hear what his objection was.
Hearsay.
All right.
I sustained it.
Who was the investigator on the case?
On the police investigation, that was Sergeant Matthew Colie.
Is he present today?
He is.
Okay. And have you had an opportunity to determine the criminal status of Mr. Heller at this time?
I don't know if I feel comfortable answering that, but I mean, based off of what I've read, I do.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay and lack of personal knowledge.
Sustained unless it's a note from one of the respondents. Sustained.
All right. No further questions. I'll pass the witness.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Profit.
Ms. Gray, you had an opportunity to come to my office, speak with my client, as well as speaking with the children separately, correct?
Yes.
And neither of the children made any outcry of any drug use that they had witnessed or drugs that they had seen in the home, correct?
That's right.
And in fact, when asked who their safe person was, they said their mom and dad.
That's right.
And as far as after we did the meeting, you did reach out to me regarding some requested things that you wanted the parents to do, correct?
Yes.
And at that point, as far as it relates to my client, she's not even criminally charged with anything. Is that correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
And she has children into their adulthood. She's never had a CPS history of any kind, correct?
Correct, in the state of Texas.
Are you insinuating there's a history in another state?
I'm not insinuating everything. I just stated my knowledge is she does not have any prior CPS history in Texas.
Okay, but you didn't check to see if she had a CPS history in any other state?
No.
And as far as the things you're asking them to do, you want drug testing and therapy and several other things, correct?
Yes.
But there's zero evidence that these children have been neglected, correct?
There's criminal evidence.
Well, ma'am, a criminal charge, would you agree, is a charge? It's not a conviction, correct?
I feel like these are questions for the criminal side. I can't speak as to the criminal part of this.
Okay, so you don't know the difference between being charged with a crime and actually being convicted of a crime?
I am aware of the difference, yes.
Okay, and in this particular case, neither party has been convicted of a crime, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
And as far as when you saw the children, they were in good health, good spirits, looked well cared for. Would you agree?
Yes.
And so why would my client need to be ordered to attend family and individual counseling?
Because of the criminal involvement, the drug concerns.
But my client doesn't have any criminal involvement, correct?
Not that's been admitted to me.
And then as far as drug testing, you want them to do random drug and alcohol testing, even though there's no allegations about involving alcohol, correct?
Yes.
And as far as drug testing is concerned, there was no evidence that my client had any drug use history of any kind, correct?
They denied all drug involvement to me.
And you didn't find any independent evidence that would support that my client uses drugs, correct?
They wouldn't allow me into the home, so I could not do that assessment.
You think that seeing their home would alert you as to whether or not they use drugs ever in their past?
I mean, that's a part of our assessment.
After you had met with them in my office, did you ever ask to go to the home?
No, I didn't.
And then last but not least, you want them to, I'm sorry, I believe there was also a request that you wanted them to do the outreach, screening, assessment, and referral and follow all recommendations to that, correct?
Yes.
And what is the basis for having them participate in any type of evaluation through the OSAR?
A substance use assessment due to the drug concerns.
And lastly, you added that you want them to follow a supervision plan. Are you asking that their access to their children be supervised?
Yes.
By who?
Possibly the adult brother in the home.
The adult brother that they've raised for the last 20 years.
I have not been able to speak to him.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pouncil.
Thank you, Judge. Ma'am, it would be fair to say that most of the information that gives you concerns come from someone other than yourself or someone else in the department.
Due to my limited involvement with the family at this time, yes.
Okay. And as far as any CPS history regarding Mr. Heller, there isn't any prior CPS history that you're aware of, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, pass witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Porter-Wheeler.
Thank you, Judge. Ma'am, at this time, you're not seeking to remove the children, correct?
That's correct.
You want the children to remain in their home?
Yes.
So you still want this mom and dad to continue raising their children, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Are you concerned about the inherent dangers that are potentially associated with alleged drug trafficking affecting these children and their safety?
Absolutely.
You think that doing these few services and having some supervision would mitigate the concerns of potentially alleged drug trafficking in the safety of these children?
Yes.
And at this time, you're not seeking removal. I'm going to ask that again.
That's correct. Not seeking to remove.
No further questions, Judge. Pass this witness.
All right, thank you. Back to you, Ms. Dick.
No questions at this time, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if I could just have one follow-up.
You may.
Ma'am, would you agree that allowing the state to interfere with a family unit should require more than a potential risk?
No, because there's high risks in these cases, and these services could mitigate those risks from it turning into an immediate danger.
So you believe that within the Constitution of the United States, the state should be able to interfere in a family unit because
Overruled.
because there's a potential risk.
There were drugs found in the home.
Well, you don't know, right?
Sustained. And Ms. Heller, I'm going to ask you not to, I know it's very difficult because you might be sitting in your home in your living room, but I'll just ask you, and this is not the first or even the second time it's occurred, just try not to make any, body language expressions in response to what you might be hearing. All
Yes,
right,
sir.
thank you.
And Your Honor, that's all I have of the witness.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions of Ms. Gray from anyone?
I have just a couple, Your Honor.
Okay.
Where were the drugs found?
They were
Objection
found.
calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you have concerns? What created the primary concerns that you had at this time or during this investigation?
Can you rephrase the question?
If there was drug trafficking going on in the home, would that constitute abuse and neglect of those children?
Yes.
All right. And based on your usual cases, how in depth did you have to go in this case in your investigation?
I had to speak to all the parents of the children, and I had to request the police reports. I had to request services through Ms. Profit that were ultimately denied, which is why we're here.
Okay. So, based on your professional judgment, do you believe that these children are at risk for abuse and neglect based on your investigation?
Yes.
Objection or ask and answer redundant.
Sustained.
No further questions at this moment. I'll pass witness, subject to recall.
All right, thank you. Any other questions of Ms. Gray?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gray, I'm going to place you in the virtual meeting, the virtual waiting room, and just to remind you of the rule. All right, you may call your next.
Sergeant Colie.
All right. All right, Sergeant Colie, this is Judge Lockwood. You are now in the courtroom virtually. You've been called to testify by CPS. So if I can get you to start your video and raise your right hand to be sworn in, please. All right, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Ms. Dick, you may proceed.
Okay, Sergeant Colie, please state your name for the record.
My name is Sergeant Matthew Colie.
And how long have you been a detective?
Since 2018.
Okay, are you familiar with the parents, Sean Heller and Nikki Heller?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you meet the father and mother in this case?
They were subjects of a criminal investigation within the city of Montville.
Could you repeat that last part of your statement?
They were both subjects of a criminal investigation within the city of Montville.
Okay, Mont Bellevue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When was your investigation conducted?
I do not have that right in front of me. It was in 2024, I believe, the date that Sean Heller was arrested. But it was conducted in the second half of 2024. That's when it began, up until the time he was arrested.
So would you say in the last few months?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What did your investigation of Sean Heller reveal?
It revealed that he was part of a conspiracy to traffic large amounts of illegal narcotics across the United States border to the city of Mont Bellevue, and then to distribute those narcotics.
Right. And to your knowledge, were there drugs found in their home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And where were those drugs being kept?
There were drugs located in the common area near the living room. There were narcotics located in the master bedroom closet as well.
All right. So were the drugs within the children's reach?
They could have accessed them, yes.
Okay. What were the allegations against Mr. Heller?
Like the criminal charges, or?
Yes, the criminal charges.
He's facing an enhanced first-degree felony for manufacture and delivery of controlled substance in penalty group 3 and 4.
So for manufacture and delivery of drugs, and did you say in the category of 3 and 4?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you tell us what that category of 3 and 4 consists of?
It's a very, very broad range, but all controlled substances that have a high abuse potential and are dangerous to individuals that take them, such as carisoprodol, armodanafil, tapentadol. These are some of the products that he was actually was in possession of and shipped to the house.
Where else were they shipped?
They were shipped to the United States Postal Service store to a box seller, and that's where he was going to pick them up. But they were en route to his house.
I see. All right. And when you say manufactured drugs, was he involved in the manufacturing process?
No, ma'am. Basically, manufacture and delivery. He was the constructive delivery through the United States Customs Service and to his house so that he could deliver the drugs to other people.
What drug enforcement or what law enforcement agencies were involved in this investigation?
The Chambers County Sheriff's Office, Homeland Security Investigations, and the Mont Belvieu Police Department.
Okay. Did you also get a cellular warrant of the contents of his cell phone?
Yes, ma'am.
And what type of evidence did you discover on his phone?
Evidence that he was a narcotics dealer.
I'm going to object to hearsay what's on his phone, Your Honor.
It's not hearsay. He confirmed it. Well, he confessed.
Sergeant, I'm going to call the balls and the strikes and determine whether it's hearsay. So let me do that. But the objection to hearsay is overruled. You may answer.
Can you rephrase the question?
You may finish your answer if you didn't get to finish.
Hi, guy. Can she rephrase the question so I can hear it again?
Okay. Let's see. What type of evidence did you discover on his phone?
Within the cell phone, we discovered conversations, images, routing information, purchase orders, and numerous agreements to where Mr. Heller would acquire drugs and was selling them to other people.
Your Honor, that is hearsay if it included conversations with non-parties.
Sustained.
Did Mr. Heller confess his involvement in drug trafficking?
Yes, he confessed that he was a drug dealer.
Did he confess his involvement in narcotic sales?
Yes, he did.
Did he confess that he was involved in making illegal narcotic shipments to Chambers County?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And can you, at this point, has he taken a plea to your knowledge?
I'm not aware of any plea.
Okay. And during the course of your investigation, did Mr. Heller bond out of jail?
I couldn't tell you when or how he got out of jail.
Okay. No further questions right at this moment. I'll pass the witness.
Sergeant Colie, there are no other allegations other than this particular shipment that was seized by Homeland Security, correct?
What exactly do you mean by that?
Has he been charged with any other importing or ordering of out-of-country medication?
I couldn't answer that technically here because that'd be part of a federal investigation.
But as far as your investigation was concerned, it involved a shipment that actually was stopped by Homeland Security at the point of entry, correct?
There was multiple shipments. It wasn't a singular shipment.
All at the same time, though, correct? I mean, they all came in at the same time?
No, ma'am. And I was also notified that there's another package en route that was seized after the fact.
And as far as the manufacturer component, I think you have said to Ms. Dick that he was not manufacturing anything, correct?
No, ma'am. It's both words are the simultaneous in the code.
And as far as delivery is concerned, there's no evidence he actually delivered anything to anyone because he didn't get the items, correct?
No, ma'am. We do have evidence. He confessed that he was delivering narcotics.
And of course, you have body cam that's going to show that.
Yes, and the recorded interview where he confessed to doing it.
And he has entered a plea of not guilty, correct?
I couldn't tell you what his plea was.
And as far as you know, did any of those medications make their way into their home in Mont Belvieu?
Yes, not the ones from the shipment, from previous shipments, yes.
And sir, when you indicated that there were narcotics in the home, those included actually prescribed medications for the parties, correct?
Not that I'm aware of. They were not prescribed.
Have you seen the prescription medication that the parties have been prescribed by their treating physicians?
Well, I would ask what prescription medications you're talking about.
Well, I get to ask the questions. Have you seen the prescription medication that they have been legally prescribed?
I understand what you're saying. I'm asking to clarify the question as to which ones you'd be referring to.
When you seized medication and that you indicated were narcotics, do you know whether or not they were legally prescribed medication?
None of the items we seized from the house had a doctor's or physician's note or were under a prescription.
And in fact, you even seized their dog's medication. Isn't that correct?
If we seized any medication, it had no prescription labeling on it or orders from a doctor, and it was not labeled at all for prescription.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive to counsel's question.
Sustained.
You seized medication that belonged to their dogs, correct?
I'm not a physician, and I don't have it in front of me, so I couldn't say whether or not it's for a canine or a human being. So I don't know who it's prescribed to.
And as far as my client, Nikki Heller, there's no criminal charges pending against her. Is that correct?
Not at this time, no.
And in fact, her name doesn't appear on any of the documents that are associated with the current charges, correct?
In terms of her name being mentioned or as a party of the offense?
Is she on? Did she order anything or have anything delivered to her?
No.
Did you have any contact with the children when you were out at the home?
I did not personally. Other officers did.
And did they appear to be abused?
No, they did not.
Were they respectful and cooperative?
They were.
And are you familiar with any other criminal charges against Nikki Heller?
No.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Counsel.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, what process do you do to determine whether or not a substance is actually a narcotic?
We have the list of every illegal substance in all four, including the type A substance penalty groups, and we cross-reference it on those lists.
Okay, so you have a list, and during your, I guess, search of the house for these narcotics, you just compare what was on the boxes to the list. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but did you send the substances off to, or what was in the? Well, let me ask you this: were the boxes open?
Some of them
Any
were.
of the
Some of
boxes
them
open?
not. Some of them were.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and isn't it true that your next step would be to, or somewhere down the line, to test the substances to see if they are in fact what you believe that they are?
No, sir. That's not always required. That's only for illicit substances that aren't labeled.
Okay, but so you are not required to send it off to any lab, correct?
There's stipulations. If it's labeled as a certain substance, we're not required to test it for presumptive confirmation of what it is, because we know that it could be X,
Okay.
Y, or Z based on the labeling.
Okay. So if the label was incorrect, you would have just assumed that. Well, let me ask you this: how do you know the label is correct? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Do you know which substance you're referring to?
Well, whatever substance that you are saying that has a label, how do you know that what's in the bottle or the container is actually what's on the label? How do you know that?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to be respectful. It's the same way you would assume that it's a Tylenol in a Tylenol bottle if it's sealed from the factory. It's from that manufacturer. It says, for example, carisoprodol, and it has not been punctured or opened. Thus, any reasonable person would say that it was carisoprodol.
Okay.
And there's no indications of tampering.
Right. But
just a moment, Mr. Pouncil, just a moment. I'm sorry, Sergeant, would you mind repeating the last part of your answer? I'm not sure I got it all.
That there would be no indication of tampering, and thus we'd have no reason to believe that it wasn't what the manufacturer put on the label, just as if it was a bottle of Tylenol unopened.
All right, thank you. Next question.
Thank you, Judge. So the fact of the matter is that you're just assuming based on the label, but you don't know, in fact, that is the substance that what the label is purporting that it is, correct?
No, no, sir, because your client also confirmed in a Miranda's interview that it was the illegal substances we have him accused of possessing.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Overruled.
Well, I guess my question was not dealing with Mr. Heller. I'm just trying to say or ask you, do you not do anything to try to test the substance to see if in fact it is what is on the label, or you in all your cases you just assume that it is because of the things that you just said?
No, sir. I think it's can you direct your question more specific, because it seems very general?
Well, let me
trying to give you a direct answer.
You said that you assume when you look at something and it has the labeling on it from the manufacturer, that essentially you assume, and it hasn't been tampered with, that you assume that it is what the label says, correct?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled.
Well, I'm just trying to clear it up for him.
Overruled. You may answer.
So let's just start there. That was your testimony, correct, sir?
Can you restate the question?
Just as a basis, which, just to be fair, you're trying to say that, let me say, in Mr. Heller's case, you did no testing of the drugs. You just took what was on the label and you just assumed that those are actually narcotics, correct? Based on the label.
I did no testing myself. The United States
Okay.
Department of Homeland Security investigations advised us that it was a positive substance, carisoprodol.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay, and objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
And when you get the drug, you stated earlier, I believe you said that we don't always have to do it. Is it your police department, or is it your protocol, your training that you can that's discretionary, that you don't have to, if you don't choose to, send it off to the lab to see what the actual substance is?
No, sir. It's not that it's customary or policy. It's that that's how all the investigations are ran. If you find a white substance that's not within a labeling, that could be crack cocaine or heroin, you send it off for presumptive testing to determine exactly what substance within that penalty group it is. If it's labeled and you have the knowledge of what that substance is without having to do testing to confirm what it is, then that's not necessary at that point in time.
Have you ever had an investigation that you've been a part of where you actually test the substance that has a label? Did you ever send it off to a lab to see if it actually is what the label purports it to be? Have you done that?
I possibly, yes, I have. In the past, I possibly have.
So, and when you did that process, can you tell us what do you do? Step one, what steps do you take to send that, to prepare it or to send it off to the lab? What do you do?
It's secured in evidence and sent to the laboratory for testing, and there's no other steps.
Okay, and I guess you put it in a bag, label it.
Yes, sir. It's secured as evidence and with the policies.
Okay, and there's a chain of custody that is a part of this process as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the lab, where do you send the stuff off? Where do you send the substance off to?
It depends. There's multiple labs. I couldn't give you a singular answer for that.
Okay, all right. And with Mr. Heller's case, let me ask you, in Mr. Heller's case, do you intend to send the substance off to any labs?
No.
In this matter? Okay.
No, not.
So Mr. Heller is just different. You just choose not to do it for Mr. Heller. Is that correct?
No, no, sir, it is different. Would you like for me
Let
to
me ask
explain
you about the confession. Let me ask you about the confession. When did purported confession, alleged confession, when did he supposed to have confessed to you, sir?
After he was arrested for picking up the large amount of narcotics from the United States Postal Service.
Okay, where was he at when where did this confession take place?
In the interview room at the Mont Belvieu Police Department.
Okay, and how long had he been detained by the time you guys interrogating him?
I couldn't give you the exact time. Not very long.
Okay.
It was very quickly after he was arrested.
Okay, and was counsel present with him? Did he have an attorney?
He was read his Miranda rights and he waived the right to counsel.
Okay.
And that was recorded as well, sir.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and our past witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Purdue-Wheeler.
I don't have any questions for this witness, Judge.
Okay, thank you. Sergeant Colie, did you ever receive a warrant to seize the mother's cell phone?
No, sir. We had no reason to, or we didn't have probable cause to seize her cell phone.
Okay. And were you there at the residence when the drugs were seized?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You had mentioned that some were found in I think you said a common area, and then in the bedroom closet. The drugs in the common area versus the drugs in the bedroom closet, master bedroom closet. Was there, in your view, a difference in the dangerousness of the two sets of drugs or locations?
The drugs that were located in the common area were on top of a bookshelf. And they were at least 4 to 5 feet above the ground, and they were in the area of the living room near the entryway to the master bedroom. So it wasn't like they were on top of a coffee table, but they were in plain view to where the kids could have grabbed it, and it was in an open blister pack.
And what was the last part?
It was like in an open blister pack. So like the Carasopradols, also known as Somas, it was a package of those. So there were a bunch of empty spots where the pills had been taken out, and there was just a few left, and that was visible.
And not in a prescription bottle or a prescription box?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, the drugs found in the closet, were they in plain view within the closet? Were they hidden? Were they in a container within the closet? Do you recall?
There were some none of them were in plain view. There was some hidden in a safe. There were some in some boxes and some throughout the bathroom in drawers, but there weren't any laying out on the ground.
Okay. Was one or both of the children present when this seizure occurred?
There were, I believe, both children were there, and then there was an additional adult who I believe is Nikki Heller's brother.
Did you observe during this seizure kind of the demeanor of the children?
Yes, sir.
And how would you describe that?
They were emotionally distraught just from the situation, but other than that, they seemed normal.
All right. Thank you, Sergeant. Any other questions of Sergeant Colie from anyone?
Yeah, and I have a couple of questions. Sergeant, in terms of the alleged confession, were you present for this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was the interviewer.
And did you ask my client whether or not he had prescriptions for any of the narcotics that you found?
I couldn't tell you yes or no, but I'm trying to think about how to answer this. Can you rephrase that question?
Well, did you just flat out ask him, did he have a prescription that would entitle him to have these, the alleged narcotics?
He couldn't have had them, sir. It was impossible.
But my question to you was, did you ask him that?
So that question, it's not, I'm trying to think of a way I can answer that to where it's relevant, to where it's not skewed, because it's not an appropriate question based on the information we have.
All right.
Objection, not responsive.
Sustained.
Sir, I'm just simply asking you to tell me whether or not you even asked. It's either yes or no. Did you ask him?
No, we did not.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm sorry, Mr. Pouncil, I'm sorry. Exactly ask him what?
Whether or not he had a prescription for any of the narcotics that they allegedly found.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Any other questions of Sergeant Colie?
Just one more, Judge, actually. If you don't
Okay.
mind. Sergeant, you said you were the interviewer of the father in this case.
Yes, ma'am.
At any point, did your conversation with him lean towards whether or not his children were aware of what was in the home and if they knew not to touch certain things, or if he'd ever had a conversation with his children about how they should stay safe around these kinds of medications?
To my recollection, no. I don't believe our interrogation ever went towards the children.
Okay. And other than that, as you stated earlier, you just observed them from a distance. You didn't interact with them that day.
No, I know I didn't actually talk to them at all.
Okay. When you said they were distraught, were they like just making bad faces? Were they crying? Were they sobbing?
I believe it was more or less you could tell that they were visibly upset. I didn't see anyone crying or, an outward burst of emotion, but you could tell that they were upset that the police were at their house and that their father had been arrested.
At what time and I'm trying to get some perspective on this, what time of day did this event happen?
He was arrested around noon, and the search warrant for the house occurred, I think, right around 5 o'clock in the evening.
And how many officers participated in that search?
4 or 5.
No further questions, Judge.
All right. Thank you. Sergeant, was Nikki Heller present during the seizure?
Yes, sir.
Did she ever tell you, or did you ever hear her exclaim that she had no idea, didn't know anything about all of this?
I couldn't tell. I can't recall.
Okay, is it fair to say that at this point, at least, you don't believe she did?
Mr. Heller claimed all of them, And Nikki Heller didn't make any statements that she had knowledge, but I will say it would be hard to not have knowledge with it being within her living quarters. But she did not claim to have any knowledge of it, no.
All right. And they were both living, as far as you know, living under that roof
Yes,
together.
sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So one last question from me, Sergeant. From what was seized, was any of it methamphetamine or fentanyl?
No, sir.
All right. Okay.
I have one question.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Ms.
Okay. Why was it impossible for Mr. Heller to have a prescription for those medications? Why would it have been impossible for him to have a prescription?
Because they were ordered illegally through a black market source across the United States border, contrary to U.S. law, and not through a pharmacy.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions of Sergeant Colie?
Yes, Your Honor. Sergeant, in terms of when you was there, just to be clear, none of the children appear to be in any immediate danger. Would you agree with me?
No, they did not. In that moment, no.
Okay. And then you guys did surveillance on Mr. Heller. Is that correct? That what you said earlier?
Yes, sir.
And how long did your surveillance? How long did that last?
From the moment, I believe 4 o'clock in the morning until the time he was arrested.
Okay, so we're just talking about surveillance just for one day, essentially, right?
No, he was checked at the house was checked on periodically in the weeks leading up to it, or days and weeks leading up to it. But we're not talking constant 24-hour surveillance. The only constant surveillance would have been the day of the operation.
Okay, and just to be clear, I know you stated earlier your conversation did not gear towards the safety of the children with Mr. Heller. What about with Mrs. Heller? Did you ask her any questions regarding?
No, because we didn't really have a reason to ask about the safety of the children. We didn't have any concerns immediately. The only reason it was reported, obviously, was the legal requirement that we had to because narcotics and of the children's involvement during the police activity. But I had no reason to inquire into that at that moment on the scene.
Okay, and during your interrogation, none of the conversation went to whether or not he was keeping them away from the children. You guys didn't even get to none of that, like making sure that the children didn't get into the medications or anything like that. Your conversation didn't touch that at all. Agreed?
No. Yes, sir.
Okay. So it'd be fair to say you're unaware of whether or not. Well, you didn't interview the children, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay. And so it'd be fair to say you never got a chance to talk with them about what they knew about not getting into the medicine, any medications or anything like that. You don't know what they know about not getting into those medications, correct?
Yes, yeah, I wouldn't know.
Okay. And you saw the children when you guys went into the home and seized the medications, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the children, you would agree with me, they didn't appear to be toddlers or a baby, or they didn't appear to be very young children. You agree?
They appear to be teenagers or adolescents. Yes, sir.
Okay. And so in your investigation, you're not aware of any conversations between the parents and the children regarding, being in the home with these medications in a safe way, correct?
I'm not aware of any conversations, no, sir.
Okay. That wasn't really your reason to get involved with Mr. Heller was solely on like the criminal aspect of this and not necessarily whether or not the medication posed a risk to the children. Would you agree?
The investigation was criminal 100% in nature, and the referral for Child Protective Services was made out of the policies and procedures that state we have to notify because of the narcotics involved. That was the only basis
Right.
of the case was criminal.
Right. So essentially, you took care of the criminal, and then you contact CPS so they can deal with any safety issues regarding the children, right?
Yes, sir.
Fair enough.
Yes, sir.
And, Your Honor, if I could follow up with just a couple. Sir,
You may.
are you aware of whether or not Mr. Heller is currently on bond conditions with regard to his criminal case?
I couldn't tell you, ma'am, no.
And is it also fair to say that although you did find prescription medication that fell under particular categories, you did not find what I would call street drugs at the home, correct?
Not at the home, no, ma'am.
And as far as the children were concerned, was there any evidence whatsoever that the children had taken any of the medication that was at the home?
No indication of that at all.
And as far as Miss Heller is concerned, she wasn't interrogated or any of those kinds of things, correct?
No, ma'am. We had no reason to.
And do you know whether or not Mr. or Mrs. Heller have submitted to drug screening?
I am not aware of that. I'm not sure.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Anything else from anyone else for
Yes.
Sergeant Colie?
Briefly, Judge, and it's going to follow some questions you asked earlier that
Okay.
sparked. Officer, just to clarify, the types of, because we keep saying narcotics, and I'm sure we all immediately think like meth and heroin. Was one of the drugs modafinil?
Yes.
Okay. And modafinil is, to your knowledge, it's a histamine actually, which is used to treat ADHD, shift work syndrome, narcolepsy, that kind of thing.
That sounds correct, but I couldn't be 100% certain.
And were some of the others muscle relaxers, opioid alternative painkillers, that kind of thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that it wasn't like we had crack cocaine. Not that I'm not making a judgment on the difference, but I just want to make sure the court and all the parties are clear on what we mean when we say narcotics.
To clarify, so I can clarify, is other than those medicines, the only other drug that would have been at that house on that date was marijuana. But other than marijuana, it's those listed substances, and that was it.
Okay. No further questions. Passes for this judge.
All right, thank you. Ms. Dick?
What were the amounts of the marijuana?
Approximately a half a pound of marijuana.
All right, thank you. Other questions?
Mr. Colie, is there a reason why that's not listed on the evidence list?
Half a pound of marijuana?
Correct.
It 100% is in the evidence.
On the evidence list that's been provided in the criminal case?
It's absolutely within our evidence vault.
Okay, but that's not what I'm asking. Is there a reason why it wouldn't be on the evidence list?
No, unless for some reason the copy of the report that you have isn't updated, but it should be on the evidence list and in evidence.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Was
I have one, yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Sorry. And Mr. Colie, just to be clear, you say half a pound of marijuana, but you have not weighed, you didn't get checked or weighed the substance, did you?
No, we did. That's why I don't have it in front of me. It was approximately around half a pound of marijuana.
Well, yeah. Well, let me ask you this. You sent it off to be weighed, or did you weigh it yourself?
We weighed it with a evidence digital scale that can weigh grams to pounds.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Pass witness.
Okay. And Sergeant, if you recall, was this marijuana located in one of the groups you found the other drugs in when you seized it?
No, it was located in the truck that was at the house. Mr. Heller had it in his possession. It wasn't at the home during the search warrant,
Okay,
but it was at the house before he left.
was the seal or the packaging open?
No, it was vacuum sealed.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right.
One
Any other
last-
questions? Okay, one more
Sorry.
question.
The ADHD is strong today. Sir, in your investigation with all these agencies, do you feel confident that your net was cast wide enough that you sort of caught everyone involved?
Yes.
And the reason I'm asking is because my next question is, do you think there's any risk of any kind of fallout or somebody who might have been involved in any potential chain of this business that might seek any kind of reprisal or retribution against the family?
That is very possible.
Your Honor, I'm going to object that calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Nothing further, Judge. I'm honestly done now.
Okay, all right, thank you, thank you. Okay, Sergeant Colie, thank you very much for your time and your assistance this afternoon. You are excused. Please stay safe.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Dick, you may call your next.
Okay, I'd like to call the mother, Nikki Heller.
All right, Ms. Heller, if you will unmute and raise your right hand to be sworn, please. All right, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Ms. Dick, you may proceed.
Ms. Heller, please state your name for the record.
Nikki Heller.
Okay, are you the mother of, sorry, and I'm looking, I apologize. Too many pieces of paper here, but.
Let's use that, just use their initials. Just use their initials, please.
SH and AH.
Yes.
Okay, and how many children do you have?
4.
And what are the ages of the other 2?
They're adults.
All right. And does one of those children live with you and your family?
Yes.
All right. And does he work?
He is not working at this moment.
Does he assist you with the children?
Does he assist me with the children? That what she.
Yes. Does he assist you with the children?
I'm not sure what that means. Assist me with the children.
Are you homeschooling your children?
Am I what? I'm sorry. I'm
Homeschooling.
having a hard time hearing.
Sorry, I'll speak up. Are you homeschooling your children?
I do.
Okay, does he ever assist you with homeschooling?
I mean, he does help sometimes, yes.
And does he help you supervise the children?
I mean, he lives here.
But does he ever have an active role in supervising the children?
I don't understand the question. He lives with us, so he is around us all the time. I don't understand the question, so I guess he would supervise because he's here.
Okay. Were you aware that there were drugs in your home the day that the raid occurred?
Was I aware that there was alleged drugs in the home? No.
Okay. Were there any drugs kept in the kitchen?
Antibiotics.
Okay. Have you participated in drug testing recently? Have you participated in drug testing recently?
Your Honor, we will stipulate that following our hearing last week, my client went and did at my request, went and did a 10-panel, I believe, drug test with, and I do have those results available for the court. They were negative.
All right, next question. Thank you.
To your knowledge, does your husband have prior criminal history?
No.
And Ms. Prophet, were those provided, the results provided to the attorneys?
Your Honor, I believe we attempted to file them and we were having trouble with the e-system, but I will certainly, I can share screen to show them so people can, everybody can see that, but also we are trying to get them filed. We're having difficulty.
Okay. Okay, that's good enough at this point. We'll not share them on the screen unless we have to. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mystic.
Did you post bail for your husband after he was arrested?
I did.
And how much did you post?
I don't recall the exact amount.
Does 10,000 sound approximately correct?
No.
And do you work outside the home?
I homeschool my children and I'm a stay-at-home mother. So I work inside the home.
And where is your husband currently working?
He works for the Port of Houston.
And how long has he been there?
About 18 years.
So he's still working there.
He has not worked in a couple of months, but he is still employed. He's still employed through them. He's on a leave.
Would you say that you have essentially said that you will not cooperate with the department to get services for your family?
I can't, you're cutting out and it's.
Okay. Would you agree that you have refused to cooperate with the department to get any services, family-based safety services for your family?
Refuse services? What services? At our meeting?
Drug testing?
I wasn't
Counseling?
requested.
Safety plan? Can you hear me?
A safety plan. I don't know that.
Okay, did you refuse to get a drug test through the department?
I wasn't asked to get a drug test through the department.
Was the safety plan discussed with you?
Wasn't, I don't recall. I'm not sure.
Did you have any conversation with the investigator when she was in your home?
She never came to my home. Never inside my home. She came
Okay,
to my home. I never had a conversation with her other than at my attorney's office.
All right. And at that home, did she ask you to cooperate with her? I mean, at the attorney's office, did she ask you to cooperate with services?
I don't remember. I don't recall. I'd have to review the recording.
All right. No other questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Prophet?
Ms. Heller, once you were given notice that CPS was investigating, did you retain my office to represent you?
Yes.
And did we immediately schedule a meeting where Ms. Gray could meet with the children, meet with you and your husband, question you about concerns and personal matters here in my office?
Yes.
Was there ever a single time that you refused to answer a question?
No.
And when we concluded that meeting, was it your understanding that the case was going to be staffed for closure?
Yes.
And at any time during that meeting, did Miss Gray pull out a safety plan, a child safety plan, and ask that you or your husband sign to agree to any type of services?
No, just the acknowledgement that she was able to talk to us.
And did at any time during that meeting, did she ask you and your husband to go take a drug test?
No,
And are you aware of her asking me to send you or your husband for a drug test?
no,
And when it came to their request for services, they were requesting all sorts of things like psychological evaluations and treatment and all sorts of other things. Were those issues even raised during the meeting with the caseworker?
no,
And after we were in court last week, you had fully anticipated, well, maybe you didn't. I told you that I anticipated that you were probably going to have to drug test after our hearing, that as part of our hearing that was set for the 3rd, that you'd likely have to take a drug test, correct?
yes,
And although we were not able to be reached on the 3rd, did you and your husband both submit to the drug test that we have back our negative drug screening?
yes,
And do you use illegal substances?
no,
Do you take medication that you're not prescribed?
no,
Do you take prescribed medication?
yes,
Now, there was some discussion about some medication that was found in the kitchen. Is that the medication for your dogs?
the medication in the kitchen was antibiotics.
Okay.
Medication for my dogs was in the closet, is what they're saying was in the closet.
Okay. And you've had a chance to look at the inventory of the items they took from your home, correct?
Correct.
You've provided it to me, in fact.
Yes,
And it was signed by the same detective that was just on screen, correct? And anywhere, is there even a mention of marijuana at all on that list?
absolutely not.
And certainly not a half a pound of marijuana, correct?
Absolutely not.
And as far as your life with your children, have you ever had involvement with CPS?
Never.
And as far as, and just to be clear, your adult children, how old are they?
26 and 23.
And in all of those 26 years of having children, you've never had any involvement with anyone accusing you of neglecting your children, correct?
No,
And no history of mental health issues
no,
for you or any of your children, correct? And as far as therapy and going and being evaluated by a group to determine what other resources you need, do you believe you need therapy or any other resources?
no,
Do you believe your husband needs therapy or any other resources?
no,
And just lastly, to be clear, your husband was bonded out of jail, correct?
correct.
In other words, you didn't have to go give $10,000 to the jail. You purchased a bond, correct?
Right.
And your husband is a longtime employee of the Port of Houston, but obviously related to the situation, he's on leave at this time, correct?
I mean, by choice, but yes.
And do you know if he is participating in bond conditions related to his bond? In other words, are there things he's not allowed to do while he's on bond?
Yes.
Do you know whether or not he has to drug test through the probation department?
Randomly.
And do you know if he's been participating when asked?
He hasn't been asked yet.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pouncil.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pardue-Wheeler.
Yes, Judge, thank you. Ms. Heller, my name's Courtney Wheeler, and I'm the attorney who has been appointed to represent your children. And I haven't been able to come out there and see them yet, but that's something that with your attorney will work out. Currently, or I mean, I guess since the date of the raid, I don't know what else to call it, how have the kids been doing?
Fine.
Okay.
I mean, they were scared at the time because who wouldn't be? But
Sure. Yeah,
they're fine.
I think, would you agree with me that having your home raided by police, regardless of the why, would constitute a traumatic event for a child?
But they're fine.
Now, what level of education are your children currently working on in their homeschool?
8th and 5th grade.
Okay, and are they on target for that?
Yeah.
How, do you know the name of the homeschool, like, or what homeschooling program you're using?
We use Abeka
I'm sorry?
Abeka Academy. It's a accredited Christian homeschooling program.
Okay. And at this point, are the kids having to take the, I don't recall, do they take regular standardized testing through the homeschooling program?
And they do testing through, because it's accredited, so they do the testing through the academy, but not like the Texas State testing.
Okay. What kind of extracurricular activities are your children engaged in?
Art, sewing, I mean, they're crafty.
Do they like get out of the house and socialize with their kids and play soccer or Little League?
At church, VBS, they go to the park and play.
So they go regularly like to a church youth group?
I don't know what regularly would mean, but they have gone and they go to VBS each year or for the past couple of years.
Yeah, VBS is just in the summer. Like, do they go every Wednesday to
They do
youth
not go
service?
every Wednesday. No.
Do y'all have extended? I'll tell you why I'm asking these questions. I'm trying to get a sense of how socially engaged the children are and what they're kind of exposed to. Do you guys have like a big extended family where these kids get to play with cousins of a similar age?
We do not have
I'm going to object to relevance.
Judge, I'm just trying to get a status update on these children and
All right,
what kind
of. Ms. Heller, answer that question, then we're going to move on.
Okay. What was the question?
Do you have an extended family, or do these girls have cousins or family members of a similar age that they routinely get to play with?
We have extended family.
Right, but how often do your kids get to play with them?
I'm not sure.
Can
I
you
mean, they're
give me
just as social as anyone that goes to a public school, if that's what you're getting at.
not exactly, but I just needed my question answered. Like, is it on the 4th of July at Christmas, or is it every month there's a barbecue?
There's not every month a barbecue.
No further questions, Judge. I pass this witness.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dick. Back to
No
you.
other questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Ms. Profit, any other questions?
No other questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dick, you may call your next.
Mr. Heller,
All right, Mr. Heller, if you'll raise your right hand, please. All right, do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
okay, please state your full name for the record.
John Heller,
How many children do you have?
4.
And are all of your children with Miss Nikki Heller?
Yes.
Okay. And you currently are still employed by the Port of Houston, but you're choosing not to be there?
Yes. I'm on leave at the moment.
What kind of leave are you taking right now?
Family leave. Personal family leave.
Okay. And do you have any idea when your court dates are?
I do not.
When your wife posted your bond, did she have to get funds from your family accounts?
What was that?
When your wife posted your bond, did she have to get funds from your family account?
Objection, Your Honor, relevant.
Sustained.
You participated in drug testing on the 3rd after your attorney told you to go ahead and do that on the 3rd. Is that correct?
I didn't take it on the 3rd.
When did you do it?
I believe it was last Tuesday.
Do you
I think it was
recall
the
the
4th.
date?
I think it was the 4th. Tuesday.
All right. So shortly after she recommended that you go ahead and do the drug testing, correct?
Yes, it was self-done, yes.
So not a random drug test, correct?
I haven't had random through my bail bonds yet, but I am subject to random drug tests through my bail. While I'm out of bail.
Let's don't take care not to get into any attorney-client privilege or communications.
Okay. When they found marijuana, were you surprised?
I'm going to object. Your Honor, I've advised my client. I'm advising my client again to assert his Fifth Amendment right not to self-incriminate.
All right, Mr. Heller, are you hereby asserting your Fifth Amendment right?
Yes.
All right, sustained. Next question.
No other questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Ms. Profit.
Mr. Heller, following our hearing last, I believe it was Monday, like the 4th, I'm sorry, the 3rd, we didn't end until right at like the 5 o'clock hour, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And your attorney and I had a phone call, and I conveyed through your wife that the two of you should go the following day and take a drug test, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you in fact go the very next day and take that drug test?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you aware that you and your wife both tested negative on that 10-panel drug test?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree that you were in that office taking your drug test less than 24 hours after you were requested to do so?
Most certainly, yes, ma'am.
Do you have any history with CPS?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever been accused of any type of neglect or abuse of your children?
No, ma'am.
And again, your oldest is 26, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have in fact entered a plea of not guilty, and you are currently defending yourself in that matter, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
With the help of an attorney, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And as far as the Port of Houston is concerned, they have not terminated you. You have taken leave to deal with all of these things that are currently happening with your family, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any history of mental health issues that would require or make it important for you to have any type of therapy or evaluation of any kind?
No, ma'am.
And other than this arrest, do you have a history of criminal history of this nature of any kind against you?
No, ma'am.
And how old are you, sir?
49.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pouncil.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pardue-Wheeler.
No questions, Judge.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Ms. Dick.
No further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may call your next, if any.
The state rest.
All right, thank you. Ms. Profits, you may call your first, if any.
Your Honor, I don't intend to call any additional witnesses.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Pouncil, any witnesses?
No, no witnesses, Your Honor, arrest.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Purdue-Wheeler.
No, Judge. This is a motion to participate, so we don't have CASA, so I don't have anybody.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, the court is ready for closing argument. So, Ms. Dick, do you want to begin or
I'd like to
defer?
go to the end, please, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Profit.
Your Honor, I think the evidence has been pretty clear that they cooperated with the agency. Maybe they didn't do it the way the agency wanted them to. And by that, they didn't just open the door and welcome them in without any assistance. They had the right to an attorney, and they chose to exercise that right to have an attorney present during the interview. You heard testimony that it was indicated that this was going to be staffed for closing. And then the next thing I knew, we were receiving requests for everything from ongoing drug testing, random drug testing, supervised possession, this evaluation, family therapy, all of which nothing that came out during the family interview would have justified any of those requested services, because there's no allegations that fall into those categories. You heard testimony from my clients, and as an officer of the court, I would let the court know that I have their 10-panel drug tests. They were both negative. You heard testimony that there were not illegal substances in the home, that there may or may not have been marijuana in the truck, although it's not listed on the police officers' evidence inventory. And I don't believe he was charged with possession of marijuana. But either way, Your Honor, at this point, they've addressed the issue, the one issue that was out there, which is the drug issue. They've both taken the test. They did it immediately after I asked them to do so. They couldn't go that day because, as you probably recall, we were here pretty late that day. But the very next day they were there. And so I don't believe that the state has met their burden to require the parents to participate in any type of services at this time.
All right, Ms. Profit, thank you. Mr. Pouncil.
Your Honor, I agree with Ms. Profit, and just want to add that there was no specific, it was not demonstrated specifically how the children may or may not have been at any risk, despite the medications being seized. The officer did testify that the children appeared to be that they weren't being harmed or any danger at that time. He referred to the department. It very apparent that the department is really relying on the investigation of law enforcement. But outside of that, there hasn't been any showing specific or proven specificity that the children, how and what kind of way they would be in any type of danger or even risk, or that they were even harmed. So with that being said, Your Honor, in addition to what Ms. Profit said, I believe that the state has failed to meet their burden as far as trying to have the parents participate in services.
All right, Mr. Pouncil, thank you. Ms. Purdue-Wheeler.
Thank you, Judge. At this point, I have not been able to, and not like it's anybody's fault, I just hadn't been able to go through the steps to set it up, but I haven't been able to meet with my clients yet. So I do not have direction from my clients on what they want. And I don't have a dog in this fight past that. So I can't make a request or suggestion one way or the other.
All right, Ms. Wheeler, thank you. Ms. Dick.
At this time, Your Honor, I would just say that it seems disingenuous to say that there were no illegal substances in the home when there were illegal drugs that were found. And we had testimony that these drugs would have had to have been bought on the black market to even make it into this country. The drugs were clearly within the reach of the children. They could have found a way to get to them. The children were clearly very upset by a raid in their home with 5 officers. And the lack of cooperation is concerning. There's no indication that they were willing to cooperate in any way with the department. The drug testing was on a date that was set. Notice could have been given. I think that there are concerns about a drug raid that occurred in this home. And there was testimony regarding confessions by the father, not just once, but on several matters. And I think that having some oversight from the department would be helpful to these children, because the children are the ones that are truly at issue, and to have some services available to them. The department is asking for, evaluations, therapy, more drug testing, and counseling also available for the children in this particular situation. It is drug trafficking is a pretty risky business. And if the children have been exposed to that, they certainly need some support. Thank you.
All right. Thank all of you. Mr. Heller, the court believes that you placed your children and your family, your household, at great peril. But for this seizure, many children throughout the community could have been placed at great peril. I don't know if there's too many triggers at your job at the Port of Houston, but if there are, you might need to get another job. The saving grace has been that you all both tested negatively. But I don't praise you for that. The law requires that I deny the department's petition if there's not sufficient evidence, as the attorneys know, under 264-203-M1 and 2. At this point, the court simply does not believe the department has made that case. So I hereby deny the petition. And as the term at least used to be used, I hope, Mr. Heller, this scares you straight, as it were. All right. Anything else from anyone else?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Petition denied as to both respondents. Thank you all very much. Please take care. And
Thank you, Judge.
all are excused. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.